to The Break Room, the podcast where the best work convos happen. We're joined today by your hosts, including workplace psychologist Ben
Hi.
and your favorite Gen Z colleagues, Isle, that's myself, hi, and Kayla.
Hi everyone.
At The Break Room, we're a team of real working folks who believe mental well being should be part of the workplace conversation. This podcast is your space to slow down and feel a little more human in the hustle. Today's episode, we'll be talking about job hopping. But before we get into the topic of job hopping, considering that this is our first episode, I thought that we should take some time to introduce ourselves and kind of get to know you guys. So, everybody listening, you get to know us more as hosts. So, yeah, I guess I can start. Hey, everybody, welcome to the first episode of The Break Room. My name is Isle. I'm the podcast producer of The Break Room. And a fun fact about myself at the moment is I'm in my gym era right now. I think that's how I deal with stress at the moment. And it's something that I like to do to keep my mind off things. And another fun fact is I like the color pink. And I don't know how to swim. So that's my current life status at the moment. And I guess a fun fact, out of the entire group, I eat the most amount of rice. That's an ongoing joke within our team. So that's a little bit about me. Anybody wants to go next?
I think I can go next, Isle. So, hi again, everyone. I'm Kayla. Some fun facts about me is I should be in my gym era, like Isle, but I have been enjoying it. I've been an enjoyer of yoga as of late. And another fun fact about me is I love coffee. And the thing about coffee is it usually wakes up people, but I can drink coffee before I go to bed and I still have a nice sleep. So that's pretty much about me. And how about you, Uncle Ben?
Oh, hi everyone. My name is Ben, and I'm a psychologist with iGROW. So, some fun facts since everybody is talking about the gym era. So, I'm supposed to be in my gym era. I haven't passed it yet. Actually, I'm supposed to be more intense. The only trouble with the gym is that it never progress beyond the thought, right? So I think, oh, I should go to the gym, but I never go beyond the thought. I haven't converted into action. And maybe a fun fact about myself is I consider myself an accidental entrepreneur, and the team also knows that I love beer, right? So I love to drink beer. That's my way of chill out, like just to relax. So yeah, that's me.
Okay, everybody, thank you so much for introducing yourselves. I hope you guys can relate to each of us in your own little way. For today's episode, we'll be talking about job hopping. According to Google, job hopping is the act of repeatedly switching jobs or employers in a relatively short amount of time, rather than staying with one company for an extended period. So this is a roundtable question for everybody in terms of job hopping. Have any of you ever left a job within the first year? What was your turning point? So I guess I can start first. Yes, I did experience this. When I first interned during my college years, I worked for under the HR department for a BPO company here in the Philippines, and I stayed with them for 9 months. So I guess my turning point was because I was supposed to be working part-time. We were supposed to be working 4-hour shifts, but because the company was severely understaffed, I was being pulled by different departments who needed more manpower at that time. And so with the 4 hours, I saw myself kind of working more than 4 hours every day. And it just got a little too stressful, a little too hectic because I was kind of interning at that time, but I already felt like I was working a full-time job. In my mind, I always thought that in order for a job to be considered like a real job, you had to stay there for a year. I think that's kind of like the threshold, the standard that I saw with other people, like the adults in my life, the older people in my life. It was the minimum amount of time that I should be staying is a year. I guess at some point it got a little too stressful because I was also still in college at that time. So, yeah, I did end up leaving in 9 months. It was a little regrettable for me because my goal at that time was to build my resume, right? Seeing that I was gonna graduate the following year, and so I wanted my resume to look proper and professional, but having that kind of footprint on my resume where I just stayed in a job for 9 months, it kind of made me nervous. Like maybe employers will look at this and think that I'm not serious in my job, but that was my turning point of things got a little too stressful. And so yeah, that was my whole experience with job hopping. That was my first experience with staying at a job less than a year. So yeah, that was my whole experience with it. Anybody want to go next?
Maybe I can talk about my experience. And I think listening to what all you've shared, I think mine is so much worse. And this happened when I was maybe just graduated from secondary school and going into, which is waiting for my tertiary education. So about 16, 17 years old. And all my friends were having part-time jobs. So I thought that I'll get a part-time job as well. So I signed up to become to work at this place called Coffee Club in Singapore. And my role is to be like a waiter server. And I remember on the first day of my work, I was so happy, like, okay, I'm getting a real job and wearing the uniform, it was all white and I have to put on the apron as the server. And as I was going out, carrying the tray, and I remember so clearly, right? And as I was putting the coffee cup, to the guests, my hand was just shaking, shivering and shivering. And then the coffee was just spilling over the edges into the saucer. And there was the cling clang sound of the spoon knocking on the coffee cup. And I was so embarrassed. And the guests, the customer have to take the cup from me, and I tried to persevere till the end of the day, but I felt so embarrassed, that I didn't show up for job the second day. I didn't even ask for my salary, because I was just so embarrassed. So I guess that job just lasted for one day and I wasn't paid for it. And I don't even want to go back and ask. I guess the good thing is I get to keep the uniform of that. Yeah. So I think that's my experience. And other than that, I think I've stayed in a job for a while. So that's the one that I remember.
Wait, just curious. The Coffee Club is like a coffee franchise across Asia. Is that where we had breakfast last year in Thailand? Where we
Yes,
breakfast?
that's right.
Oh, yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. You mentioned the coffee.
So, so it was so bad and terrible.
That's so funny that you had that experience, and then like years later, our team had breakfast there. That's like a whole like 360 journey.
Yeah.
I guess it's my turn in terms of job hopping. So, I guess in terms of job hopping, my experience was, I would say, before I joined iGROW. At the time, I was like doing some voiceover work, which was mostly like freelance. So I get to do stuff like in my own time. But at the time, I was like in my apartment. It was sort of getting harder for me to record because of course I had my roommates, and then there's all this background noise, so it was harder for me to record the voiceover stuff. And so it's a bad thing, but the guy who employed me, he was sending me like all these projects, but I would say I'm working on it, but then I would have like troubles, and then I ended up like leaving that work. I guess I was doing that for more than a month. So I thought like listening at IELTS experience of 9 months, I'm like, girl, that's already pretty long. Because mine is like a month. And then I heard Ben, which was like a day. He stayed in the job for a day. So I'm like, okay, I'm not the worst job hopper here, I guess.
Yeah, thanks for sharing, team. So I think we can proceed with a segment that we have on expert insights. So we are joined today by a licensed psychologist, Ben, and I wanna ask a few questions and have your professional insight on them. Your perspective as a psychologist on these questions about job hopping. So the first one would be, how does job hopping relate to motivation, burnout, or mismatch with an employee?
Yeah, I think that's an interesting question. At least linking motivation, burnout, and values mismatch. I guess when I think of my own personal experience, not just at the coffee club, my in my career, there was a period of time when I worked as an executive search, so like a headhunter. And so I get to ask different candidates different questions. And when I think about that, overlay with the experience and training in psychology, I think when we look at job hopping, there's two parts. The first part is it depends on the age, right? If it is within the first 5 years of your professional career, I think it is still part of the process of exploring and finding out what are things that is suitable. So I think that is absolutely all right if it is within the first 5 years of your career. And if for 20 years, of working life, and if the person has been moving and hopping from job to job, then that's certainly an area of concern, right? So the first part is it depends on the stage of your career that you are in. I think the second part is when we look at job hopping and related to motivation, burnout, values mismatch, I think I want to look at two parts. That there's the part about dissatisfaction and the part about restless and bored. So there are some people that decide to leave their job because of dissatisfaction. And the thing about dissatisfaction is that you're unhappy about something, right? And so you're unhappy could be because you know what you want and you want more of it. It could be more pay, different kind of work culture, that the environment is better, more benefits and stuff like that. So dissatisfaction can happen when someone is very clear about what they want. And then restless and bored when people are not exactly sure what they want, but they just know that maybe it's not the right fit and it doesn't feel right. It could be that they feel that they're not contributing, that they are not adding value, that they are not meeting their own personal desires. Sometimes they may not even be able to talk about it or to pinpoint it and to have a label to that. But there's just this sense of restlessness and boredom about work, and I think dissatisfaction is about knowing what you want, and restlessness or bored is when you know what you don't want, right? And maybe it's the kind of work that you're doing. And interesting as well, some people say that it could be commitment issues, right? Like these candidates have commitment issues that they can't stay in a job. While that is could be true in some cases, but not all the time, because some people maybe they want to explore, or they know exactly what they want, they know exactly what they don't want, so therefore it becomes an impetus for them to kind of move to the next part. So I think that's my thought about this, how it relates to motivation, burnout, and values. What do you think?
Yeah. I guess my perspective is less on the professional science back perspective, but more of on my personal stance on this whole topic. But I completely agree with everything that Ben mentioned. That's definitely something that I noticed even with myself, my peers, the people on the internet who are around like the Gen Z, millennial age group. That's definitely like a conversation among the internet about job hopping and kind of leaving the company as soon as you're not happy or as soon as you're not satisfied.
I guess just to add something to the mix, less on my thoughts, but I guess more of a question for Ben, since of course he's like the expert on this. Um, and you did mention that it's more common for those who are like just starting out their career. So would you say that job hopping is like, it's an okay thing to do and it's normal, or would you say no? Or like what would you tell someone who's like job hopping? Would you tell them it's okay, it's normal? Or would you do something about the situation? And another thing is, I know that we're like focused on Gen Z since Isle and I are like, Gen Z. But are there like also certain groups or generations that also experience job hopping, since you've handled workplace mental well-being and probably like have encountered different employees? So are there also like different generations that also where job hopping also tend to be a bit more like prevalent in their career?
I don't think it is related to the generation of people, whether you are Gen Z, X, Y, millennial. it is it is more common or more acceptable, right? More reasonable when we look at the stage in career. So the first 5 years of the career, and that you will see people moving around a little bit more before they settle in and they anchor their roots and they start to build a career progression pathway for themselves. So I would say there's less of the intergenerational dimension. Is more related to the stage of career that you are in. So with that, then comes the question, right? Like, is it okay? Is it normal what you say? I think it depends on who I'm speaking to. If I speak to HR from the point of view of employers, they always want to find people that are committed, right? And if in the resume they see a lot of people that are leaving, then it it could be a red flag for them. And this is if from the point of view of employers. If I were to look from the point of view of the employee, right, the job seeker, then I think what I would want to say first part is to look at what stage of the career they are in. If it's in the earlier stages of the career, then I think it's reasonable to experiment, to explore, to experience more, to find out a little bit more about different job roles. And so if it comes from an area where the person is really curious about what else is out there for them, then I think it's to be encouraged, right? The exploration is to be encouraged. And I guess the key thing is the values that the person has is important. So making sure that their own personal pursuits and exploration is not at the expense of their responsibilities. I think that's okay. If it is not at the expense of their responsibilities, that is fine. But if it is at the expense of their responsibilities, then they are burning bridges, because you never know. Maybe you go one full circle and back to where you started. So yeah, just a point to be mindful of.
Thinking about something, I'll.
Yeah, what was your first question, Kayla? Because that was really interesting. I think Ben talked about out of the generations, which did you notice like a prevalent generation that job hops more, which Ben got into? It's not more of the generation, it's more of what stage of life you're in. But yeah, I guess with the first question that Kayla asked about what advice would you give to somebody who thinks about job hopping or is in the situation of job hopping? Is it a good idea? Is it a bad idea? Or what professional advice would you say?
If I can just add on to the part about the which group of people, right? If we just look at groups of people, so it's nothing. I think it is less to do with the generation. It is more to do with the stage. The second thing is also the individual life stage, because if I'm born into a situation where money is important and I need to play a role to support the rest of my family members. So job hopping becomes less of an option, because it's not about what I want anymore. It's about my duties and responsibility to the people that are depending on me. So there's all these kind of individual factors and dynamics that is there. So yeah, I thought I wanted to add that to the part about which group of people. And for Al, the question about their advice, I think it is okay to explore. It is okay to be curious, to find out about what is the thing that resonates most with you, because we are seeing that the if we could use generation as a way for us to think of groups of people, right? The millennials, Gen Z people maybe prioritize meaning and purpose to be higher in their job pursuits and their careers. So it could be because of the hard work that the parents have put through, and so they may have a little bit more in their life. Therefore, it's no longer about survival; it's about fulfillment and about what I want to do, about meaning. So if it is about being curious, it's okay to explore, right? So that's the first thing. Second thing is don't burn bridges. Continue to make sure that whatever role you are in, that you still build strong connections and relationships with the people. The third one is as an alternative to job hopping, right? Because if the goal is about being curious to find out what else there is, an alternative to job hopping is to talk to people in the different company, in a different role, in a different industry, is to perhaps volunteer, right? In a new role, in a new capacity to see if it is something that resonates with you. So this would be some of my advice for these people.
Yeah, that's really cool. Thanks for sharing that, Ben. And I guess on top of like the expert insights that we want to ask you, I have another question about job hopping. So can job hopping sometimes be a coping mechanism for deeper dissatisfaction? I think you touched a little bit on this earlier.
Yeah, and the part that I want to anchor is coping mechanism and dissatisfaction, right? So it's about dealing with whatever that they're going through. And I think if we look at dissatisfaction, the opposite that we talked about earlier, about knowing what they want, right? So that's dissatisfaction and they're not getting it. So then when we look at satisfaction, we think of things like contentment, right? Am I contented where I am? Then the next level of satisfaction is, am I grateful for the opportunities, the experiences? And then the next part is purposeful, right? Do I feel that it is contributing meaningfully? Do I feel that I'm creating impact? So there's contentment, grateful, and purpose. So is it a mechanism? Is it a coping mechanism for dissatisfaction? I think when you it could be because they may be moving away from something because they are not getting enough of it, right? So that's the dissatisfaction. And how do they know whether it's enough? So maybe that sense of contentment, gratefulness, and purposeful could be the signpost to look at and to see if it is something that resonates with you or not. Yeah,
that's really interesting because I get how job hopping can be an opportunity and a privilege for others, but then less of an option for others. So, for example, like I have a friend, they already have kids and they're very dissatisfied with the job that they have now. And the thing is, they're really interested with the type of work that I do. But the thing is, they don't have the privilege to job hop just because they have a family to support already. And so they want to stick with the job that they already know, the resume that they have, like the experience that they have to back that. Because if they want to transition to the kind of workload that I do, it's going to take them weeks, months to kind of build from scratch. Like take all these like online courses or learn how to do this with Canva, learn how to do that with that tool, this platform, learn that platform. And they might not have the time to do that, and they might not have like the resources to do that, and that's time that they can't afford because they're supporting their family. And so I think something that I learned with like our conversation is, so far as job hopping isn't necessarily good or bad. I think it really depends on the person, the background that they have, the stage of life that they're in. And so it feels like it's really dependent on it. But yeah, thanks for all of your expert insights on that, Ben. It really kind of gave me more like of a deeper perspective on this whole topic. But I think we can proceed to our next segment on Gen Z takes, our fresh, relatable takes on this topic. And so
I
the
am
first
saying that Ben's insights are not fresh.
yeah, I feel excluded.
very, very professional, very science or like psychology driven, but it's all from Uncle Ben. But a question that I have for Kayla and I, something that I guess our perspective on it is, the first question is, do you think younger employees feel less loyal because of how companies treat people today? And I want to hear more on Kayla's take about it.
I would say like you would see like different takes online, but personally, my take on this is I wouldn't say that younger employees are less loyal. I guess first look at it, first glance at job hopping and then Gen Z and younger people. It would seem like they are less loyal because you've seen like employees stay in a company for 20, 30 years, and that's like just a different level of loyalty. And then here goes this young employee who's been with the company for 1 or 2 months, and then they decide to go. But I wouldn't say that it doesn't necessarily mean that they're less loyal. But I guess Ben touched on it like me earlier about it has something to do with the priorities, what they're looking for, that maybe they're just exploring and that they're at the start of their career and they don't necessarily align with the company that where they were first employed, and maybe they just want to explore something else that they resonate more with. But I guess in that sense, like finding a company that you align with, whether it's your values, what you believe in, something that you resonate with. I would say it speaks about how younger employees, I'm not sure if it's just really the younger employees, but it speaks about like what their priorities are in terms of what they're looking for work. So it could say something about that they're looking for a kind of job that speaks more to their purpose and their values. It could be that before employees are looking for more that's more practical, work as, their sort of bread and butter. But for now, given, the privileges, whether, you have certain privileges in life that allows you to look for work that's aligned more with your purpose. But I would say that it doesn't necessarily mean they're less loyal, but it could be just they're looking for their priorities in work are more purpose and value driven.
Yeah.
That's all.
Yeah, and that's what's interesting with this episode is because we have very like fresh relatable takes, because I have a completely different answer from Kayla, which is yes. I think younger employees might be less loyal to companies. And I think it relates to what Ben mentioned earlier, because like the younger you are, the more kind of this curiosity you have to explore, to kind of deal with other types of jobs, the different types of companies. So I feel like, yes, I'm guessing I feel like the younger you are, the less loyal you would be to a company, just because these are the first few years of your career. And so you're kind of figuring out what you want to do, where you want to go. And so I feel like, yes, we're kind of learning to prioritize work and earn money more than be loyal. So if there's an opportunity that arises that this company offers more, or this job kind of gives you that satisfaction, or et cetera, it's less about loyalty and more of what we want to do at that point, what kind of satisfies our curiosity and our need to work. The thing is, I think that there are pros and cons to staying loyal to a company or not. One of the pros is, as corny as it sounds, and all like older people say it, is like it builds resilience, which at the end of the day I think is true. It's not just as something that you put on your resume, but you really do learn how to work under pressure. You learn how to work with these deadlines, and learn how to work with different types of people, different types of department, learning how to do all of these things. And that's something that you learn when you stay loyal to one company, is learning how to do all these things because of the time that you spent there. And another thing is, when you stay loyal to a company, it's a practical way to earn. So with job hopping, you're kind of learning how to live like from paycheck to paycheck, or learning how to haggle your next job, or kind of having some gaps in your months or your weeks of not really working, and just kind of like waiting for the next offer, waiting for the next job. And so staying loyal to a company, that's a practical way to earn. Regardless if you're supporting someone or if you're just supporting yourself, it's the practical way to live. If you have money to spend on yourself, and if you're supporting someone, a family, that's the practical way to live life, is knowing when your next paycheck is. And so I guess those are some of the pros of staying loyal to a company. But some cons, I guess, is if you're really dissatisfied with your work, I imagine that you might not have work-life balance. And so I guess I see some other people, not to not to tease anybody, but I think this is something common that we see, is some people, you can see them that they're very stressed with work, like they have a receding hairline, or they gain weight, or they just have so much eye bags under their eyes. And it's because they're prioritizing work over their own like satisfaction with their careers, or their like personal life. And so that's a con as well, is when choosing loyalty with a company over your own mental health or your own satisfaction, you're gonna have to sacrifice your like work life balance, and it's gonna show in your face. It is gonna show in your life. It's gonna kind of appear in certain parts of your life. And I guess one other con is you might not have long term growth, and that's something that I did mention earlier with like my own experience of I was supposed to be working for like the HR department for a company, but that was it. Like that was the only experience I had working under HR. There's no like long term growth there. I didn't get to become like a manager. I didn't get to become like an associate. I just kind of stayed stuck as an intern and like left in less than a year. And so that's been my personal experience with it. But generally, I think that's another con. If you um stay loyal and sacrifice loyalty over your own like satisfaction, is you might not have long-term growth. So I guess at the end of it all, loyalty can be mutual. Like your company can be loyal to you and you can be loyal to your company. But I think at the end of the day, it depends on the type of the company. I'm guessing that the bigger the company, I'm guessing that you're more replaceable just because it's like a big machine where it is working every day over time. And the bigger the company, the more people that they can bring in and like let go of. But from my experience, I think the smaller the company, there's a mutual understanding, a mutual trust that you can build over the years, that you can build over time. And so yeah, at the end of the day, I think it really depends on your stage of life, the type of company that you join, the work that you do. And so that's how I feel with younger employees feeling less loyal with with companies now. Yeah.
And it's so interesting listening to both of you talk about this, and uh, like there's that diversity of views with like Kayla saying yes, and with Al having a more balanced view. And I'm very curious. I want to ask you guys, right? Like, so um, how do you balance the pressure to build a career versus the pressure to protect your mental health? You know, I'm curious to hear both your views on this.
Mm. Kayla, do you want to go first?
Okay, I'll go first. So I guess since I'm just starting out, I mean I recently really just graduated. So it really feels like I just started out like the whole working thing, adulting, career, building my career thing. So I would definitely say that I'm more into building my career now, but I guess, the pressure of protecting your mental health is also such a thing now in social media. And not just, I would say, younger people, but I would say it's sort of like an awakening in workplaces where they do tend to prioritize mental health more because there's a lot of benefits to it, not just to the employees, but to the whole company and organization. So there's that trend, like I would say, like a cultural shift in the workplace where it tends to prioritize mental health, or at least try to take care more of their employees' mental health. But I would say personally, I wouldn't say like I'm balancing or that I'm like consciously balancing the two, because right now really my personal focus is to build my career, because there's also like lots of pressure like online, in social media, where they're my age, but then they're like super successful. So there's like tons of pressure externally for you to succeed and build your career even at just such an early age. So yeah, I wouldn't say that I'm compromising my mental health. But I would say that I'm focusing more on like building my career, my profession, focusing like on my professional growth. So yeah, how about you, Lyle?
Yeah, I think I have a very similar answer to Kayla. Is just because I feel like your 20s is your mindset grind set. Like that's what you see in social media. It's like your mindset grind set. So personally, while I'm in my 20s, this is the youngest that we're gonna be. We get older every day. And so I'm always thinking that while I'm capable, like while my body is still able to work long hours or my mind is still active, this is the time for your mindset grindset era. So I feel like personally, while I'm in my 20s, I'm not necessarily um, balancing it. I'm choosing to prioritize career over mental health. It might not work for everybody, but it's just a personal take. I think I've also been really blessed with the jobs that I've had so far where you attract what you seek. And so I've been really blessed so far with the employers that I've worked with, the people that I've worked with, where everybody is just kind of, I don't know if it's the times now where both employers and employees do prioritize mental health and prioritize health. I guess compared to before where you won't stop working until you die kind of mindset. Whereas like now in recent times, in recent years, it's not just employees who kind of ask for that. It's also employers themselves who kind of offer that help or offer that flexibility. And so I think personally, I've been really blessed that the people that I've worked with have been very flexible to work with and that I didn't need to kind of sacrifice mental health. It's kind of been an option that has always been offered. And so, yeah, but going back to the question of how to balance the pressure between building a career and protecting my mental health, I think for me, it's always career first and then like mental health will follow. It might not be the healthiest take or the take that everybody can relate with, but that's just like a personal take that I have. Yeah, so that's me. And I want to get to the actionable takeaways from everything that we discussed today. And yeah, I guess going back to Ben's expert insights on everything, if you could maybe give us a takeaway or like summary of what we can kind of keep in mind after this episode on job hopping. What are some values that we kind of want to build on when it comes to job hopping and kind of prioritizing your mental health over your career or yeah, well, what personal takeaways do you have for the audience, the listeners?
Right. And I think it'd be nice to hear from every one of us, each one of us as well, about the takeaway. And maybe if I can have the chance to start first. Social media is like a part of our life, regardless of whatever platforms that we use. And one of the things that I think is important for us to have that awareness with all the influx of information, it can be overload, right? That comparison is a double-edged sword, because with all the information that we see, double-edged sword because it is useful if it motivates you to desire something. But it is not useful when it drains you and makes you feel stuck. So you will decide whether that is it useful for yourself or not, because there's good stress and bad stress. And I guess on that note, at iGROW, we always love acronyms. And as a takeaway, I would like to leave you with an acronym of HOPE, right? And with my desire for you is to make your next move with hope, not fear, not FOMO, right? So what is hope? H is for you to hear your own values. What matters to you most, right? Hear your values. O is to observe your patterns. Patterns mean, are you escaping or are you evolving? Because if you're escaping, away from something, then what is it that you're escaping from? Is it from dissatisfaction? Is it from boredom? And evolving is, are you wanting to progress and evolve to a better version of yourself, right? And P is to prioritize growth, right? To seek environments that challenge and to develop you, that you can be stretched. Because if you are in the first 10 years of a career, that is the foundational thesis, right? For you to lay the groundwork and for you to build that career trajectory for you. So focusing on growth allow you to make sure your foundations are strong. And the last E is to evaluate your energy. What gives you life or what drains you? What energizes you or what drains you? So I hope that you will make your next move with hope, not fear, not FOMO, right? Hear your values, observe your patterns, prioritize growth, and to evaluate your energy. So what about both of you? Any Any takeaways?
So I guess I can start like with the takeaways, but I think Ben was able to just wrap things up super nicely. So I guess just to add about what I realized on job hopping now that we talked about it is that first thing, I guess in terms of the person doing the job hopping, um like whoever is doing the job hopping. I guess it's, it could be like a good thing and a bad thing, but in the end, it says something about what you want and what you don't want. So if you're clear about what you want, I guess that's a good thing. At least you know what to explore, but not to the point that you'll just job hop and job hop and job hop. Because that's what I think Ben mentioned about, are you just escaping boredom? Are you just escaping dissatisfaction? Because it could be like a point of concern already about what do you actually want or what do you actually seek in terms of work, employment, your career. And the second thing is, since we touched on loyalty, aside from just the personal motivations of an employee exploring or job hopping, is that also has something to do maybe with like workplace culture. I mean, we have seen like lots of shifts in workplace culture after the pandemic, flexible working time and all of that. So many changes, priorities in mental health and well-being. So we've seen so many changes, and it could be like this could be like one factor in job hopping aside from just the personal thing. So externally, it could be the workplace doesn't, it's not the kind of workplace that you see, or you don't think that the culture in the workplace is not something that prioritizes mental health, something that just drains you and overworks you. So yeah, that's what I realized about job hopping, is that it has internal factors in terms of your personal motivations, but also external ones in terms of what are the factors outside you that push you to be more loyal or avoid prevent you from job hopping. So it's, for me, it's a mix of both of those external and internal factors. So yeah, how about you, Ayo?
Yeah, I guess my actionable takeaway is from my personal kind of mindset is at the end of the day, I guess it would be best to be practical. If you're supporting yourself and you have the privilege to job hop and explore opportunities, then feel free. Why not go ahead? But if you're someone who is supporting a family, or you're supporting somebody else, it might be sensitive waters to explore. And so at the end of the day, I think it's to be practical. What action, what next step is best for you to take? Our podcast is more about kind of prioritizing mental health and kind of diving into the conversations. But my actionable takeaway is to be practical. If for some situations you'll have to sacrifice your mental health just to put food on the table or earn money, then I guess that's something that you're gonna have to sacrifice for a little bit. But if you have the privilege to explore and you have the privilege to stay curious and chase other opportunities, then feel free. But yeah, I guess at the end of the day, it's more about, yeah, whether you're surviving or exploring. So I guess like putting yourself into that category, then you can kind of act accordingly. Because at the end of the day, you don't want to be like homeless, or you don't want to be struggling. And so kind of assessing your situation first before deciding to job hop. I think that's the important thing, or that's the key thing, is at the end of the day, you don't want to like suffer all the more. So yeah, I think for me, it's really to just be practical and kind of assess yourself before making the decision. So thanks everybody for all of your insights. I have an exciting segment next. It's gonna be the last segment before we end off today's episode, and we'll be diving into the whole am I the asshole Reddit thread. And so for those of you viewers who are not aware, or for even anybody on this team, basically there is a Reddit thread Reddit is a platform where you have an anonymous account, and so everybody posts on there for like the different niches, different topics, and everybody stays anonymous. So it's like Facebook, but for anonymous people. And so there is a thread, which is like a whole post, a whole group community of people asking for advice from everybody else on certain topics. And the topic that we want to discuss today is, am I the asshole for leaving my job after 6 months? So I'm going to be reading the Reddit post, and I want to hear everybody's opinion of, is this person the asshole or not in this situation? So let me read the post and we can discuss on our own opinions about it. So, will I be the asshole for leaving my job after 6 months? Last year, my husband's position was outsourced at his job and he was laid off. A few months later in November, my company was shut down and all of the employees were laid off too. Obviously, we were panicked and scrambling around for jobs ASAP. My husband went right into IT out of high school 20 years ago, so finding a new job without a degree proved difficult, and we decided going back to school would be the best short term option. This meant that I was the sole breadwinner for the time being. An acquaintance from high school had been actively recruiting me to take on a new position at her company, and I declined a few times and offered to help her find a good candidate instead. But when I got laid off, I asked her if the position was available. The job paid slightly more than my old one and had the added bonus of remote work. And she was excited to have me join her team, so I turned down other job offers and took hers without hesitation. 6 months into the job, and I absolutely hate it. I'm not using my skill set at all, and I've basically turned into an assistant for her team. I make presentations prettier and do whatever work nobody else wants to do. The team, my boss, and the company as a whole is disorganized and relies on outdated communication and project management methods, so nothing ever really gets done. The company also engages in some pretty shady business practices despite positioning themselves as a service organization, and I feel really gross about that. One day, when I was feeling particularly low about everything, I did a search for my job title on Indeed and found a lot of openings for much more prestigious companies that pay way better and are actually what I've trained to do. I filled out a couple of applications expecting to hear nothing back, but both have offered me interviews so far. I'm excited, but I also have misgivings about quitting a job I've just started. I've always been an employee that's loyal and I've never job hopped, so I feel like a giant asshole for leaving a position after 6 months just because I'm not happy. My husband says I'm being a Pollyanna about it, but it just seems like bad form, especially since my boss spent so much time recruiting me. What do you think? Am I the asshole or not? I think there's one term that really confuses me. What does Pollyanna mean?
I had just
Same.
searching.
Yeah, I was Googling for that as well. A person who is excessively optimistic and tends to find good in everything, even in bad situations.
They
Yeah,
have just said optimistic.
yeah. Yeah. So her husband thinks she's being too optimistic about the whole situation. Is she the asshole or not? Does anybody have their immediate thoughts on it already?
I think I'll have a go.
Sure.
At it. It does seem like it's pretty clear to her what her source of dissatisfaction is, which we mentioned like at the very start of our podcast that job hopping has something to do with what your internal factors are and what you're feeling. And it's obvious that she's unhappy with her job and that she's dissatisfied. And it's not just she's not happy, but also in terms of how she feels with her skills and that she's not being like optimized at work and that her skill set is not being maximized at work. So there are like lots of factors in here that's like pretty obvious that she should just maybe leave her job because she already has like a few options. But then again, it's still a hard decision because first thing she has this person has a partner, so they can just make the decision and that they're both like if this person leaves the job then um they would like what do you call this? They would both be unemployed. So that's practically speaking, that's gonna be a problem. But if she just, decides it's not really like about she's unsure of leaving. It feels like her foot is already in the door. Is that right? Is that the right term? But it feels like that she's already ready to leave the job because there's like just so many factors. Like she found a job that pays higher and that she's not happy. She's not using all her skills. So yeah, it just feels like she should just, she's already like decided to leave. But then maybe just the fact that the fear, I guess, of being unemployed and not having work in the interim and going back to the job board and looking for work is something that's maybe um stopping her. And another thing that I noticed is that this person did mention that they've always been loyal to the company. So maybe it has something to do with their value of loyalty and that they value loyalty as an employee and that they're having problems deciding because that means maybe for her it would mean that they're not going to be a loyal employee anymore if they leave within 6 months after being employed. So yeah, to answer the question, will I be the asshole? I guess that's um I would say if no, it not the asshole.
Yeah. Yeah, I think I can go have a go, and then Ben, the expert, can let us know if we're wrong or not. But yeah, I think this is an easy thread. My immediate answer is no, I don't think she's the asshole. And for two reasons. First is yeah, we did mention about being dissatisfied with your career, your job. And it's clear that in the 6 months that she was there, she was dissatisfied with what she was doing at the company. And I think she also felt a little betrayed just because this was a high school friend that has been recruiting her nonstop. But when she actually got there, nothing seemed like how it was supposed to. And so that just added another level of dissatisfaction. And second thing is, I talked about like being practical. If you're supporting somebody, it might be sensitive waters to tread. But with what she mentioned, that filling out a couple of applications with other more prestigious companies, and both have offered her interview so far, it shows that there is potential there and there is opportunity in other places. And so I feel like the universe is just leading her there. Of she's not happy, she's dissatisfied, and when she's looking at the other, like the if the grass is greener on the other side, it already kind of shows potential that maybe it is greener on the other side. Like that kind of confirmation of what she's already feeling, and seeing that there are other more prestigious companies that are offering her an interview already kind of means, I think, or already shows signs that she's just more than happy to leave, or she's more than happy to explore that opportunity. And I think at the end of the day, showing that, knowing that potential that's there, I think it's worth pursuing, knowing that she's not happy and there might be other companies that pay more and might be more aligned with what she's looking for. And so I don't think she is the asshole for leaving a job after 6 months. Although it all goes to show as well that she actually stayed at a job for 6 months that she's not happy about. And if it's a question about her own loyalty, I think it 6 months is a long time to stay loyal to a job that you're not happy about. And so yeah, I think this was an easy thread to say no, I don't think she's the asshole. But how about you, Ben? What are your thoughts on this?
I think both of you have given very insightful thoughts into it. So I, for me, my reply at this point in time is not the asshole at this point in time, because she's just thinking and considering. So not the asshole yet. And like all the reasons that you guys have talked about, and clearly if the husband has been out of, like been working for about 20 years, they are not new in their career. So not the asshole yet. Why do I say yet? Because right now, at the point of consideration and sending applications, I think that is fine. It's about how she ends this current chapter of career that is important. So she will not be the asshole if it is wrapped up properly. For example, having conversations with the friend that was recruiting her about the role and giving sufficient lead time, right, to find a replacement or to transition and hand over things properly, then she is not the asshole for sure. If she's takes up the offer and suddenly, like the next day says I'm going to end without giving ample lead time, then I would say that she's the asshole because it is a little bit too abrupt and she just burned her bridges. So that's my take.
Yeah, that's really interesting. I didn't think about that at all. I guess because like as for an employee point of view, I'm like, I'm done leaving. But yeah, that's definitely something to consider when you do leave a company, regardless if you like it or not, regardless if you're happy there or not. I think at the end of the day, staying professional and staying decent and civil as possible, regardless if you like the company or not. I think that's something that a reputation, I guess, that you would want to build when you start your careers. Regardless if you like a, an regardless if you like the company, the employer, the client, it's best to stay as professional as civil as possible in all situations. So that's another takeaway that I'm getting from this. But yeah, that's all we have for today's episode. That is it for today's coffee break. Before we wrap up, any I guess more of like a roll call for everybody here. How did you feel about today's episode? Yeah, Kayla?
I felt about today's episode, I would say, as someone who's just starting out her career, and I've definitely had like conversations like this with Ben and the team, and you guys know that. Um yeah, so I would say that it feels, I gained a different perspective into job hopping. But then again, aside from the fact that, Ben might consider it as you exploring or me exploring a different role or trying out, it's still, up to me on whether my intentions, my motivations are clear, whether I'm actually escaping. Am I escaping or am I actually evolving? So while I guess in the process of this trying to figure things out, um, if you're job hopping right now, it's still important to do like some introspection about what you're doing and what you actually want. What do you desire after this? So, because in the end, that will be very helpful in your personal and professional growth. So, I would say for those who are like job hopping right now, um, maybe just embrace the process, but still be a professional, not be an asshole, and leave the job without any announcement at all, without telling the people. So yeah, um, like be observant of your thoughts, but then at the same time, keep it professional and like what Ben said, don't burn bridges because you might need those people in the future. So
Yeah.
yeah.
I guess I can go next. Mine is I'm quite shocked on our conversations with today's episode. I was kind of expecting that Ben being the more like senior person in our group and having all of this experience with the workplace and different types of jobs, I kind of thought that we would all have kind of opposing views. But I feel like at the end of the day, our team is very open-minded with this topic, and it seems like the answer at the end of the day is it depends. Job hopping isn't necessarily good or bad. It depends. It depends on your age. It depends on your situation. It depends on your stage of life, and so that's what I'm getting is yeah. There's not necessarily like a strict yes, it's it's a red flag, or a strict no, it's bad. It's more of it depends. Like at the end of the day, it depends. And so having like all that introspection and like what Kayla mentioned, It's really interesting to hear everybody's takes on job hopping today. And so, yeah, I think, yeah, how about you, Ben? Any like
I think
closing?
I like the conversation. I like the openness, and I think it's nice that now we have a new platform for us to chat and to share our views. And I'm really looking forward to hearing different perspectives, different views. So if there are people that have any thoughts, any comments as you are looking at this, please feel free to put it in. If there's other topics that you would like us to talk about, something that's relevant to you, something you're curious about, do let us know as well, and we'd be happy to have conversations around that. Yeah, so that's my thoughts about the conversation. Now, back to you.
So that's it, everybody. That's it for today's coffee break. Thanks for hanging out with us in the break room. Don't forget to share this episode with your favorite work buddy, your friend, your colleague, your best friend, your boyfriend, your partner, your sibling, whoever. And if you've got thoughts, rants, or feels, slide into our DM, send us a message. You can even send us an email. We're at iGROWOnline on most platforms. And remember, your well being matters even between meetings. Catch you next time. Bye. Bye,
Bye,
everybody.
everyone.